Hello and very warm welcome to Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, where your dreams are our mission. This is Yatharth here. In the last lecture, we focused on mapping portion as well as the current affairs from this week. In this lecture, we'll be focusing from many environment issues as well as the organizations such as G20. In the last lecture also, we focused on the BRICS summit and the BRICS organization. All right. So we'll starting this lecture from the G20 news. So Chinese Premier Li Qiang to attend G20 virtual meet. You must already be knowing that India has the G20 chair this year. And in Chinese system, we saw that BRICS was latest addressed by the Chinese Prime Minister. And now we are talking about the Chinese Premier. So both are different. Please take care. All right. So there's a virtual summit of 2023. So let's see about the G20. So G20 or a group of 20 is an intergovernmental forum. So please take care of this. The nature of the organization is it's an intergovernmental forum comprising 19 sovereign countries, the European Union and the African Union, that is AU. It works to address major issues related to the global economy, such as international financial stability, climate change mitigation and sustainable development. So it accounts for more than or around 80% of the gross world product GWP, 75% of the international trade, 2/3 of the global population and 60% of the world's land area. So it's a major organization. So let's see its origin. So G20 was founded in 1999 in response to several world economic crises. Since 2008, however, it has convened at least once a year, with summits involving each member's head of government or state, finance minister and foreign minister, and other high-ranking officials. The EU is represented by the European Commission and the European Central Bank. So basically, it's about the big problems as well as the economy. In the 2009 summit, the G20 declared itself the primary venue for international economic and financial cooperation. So we saw the major organization associated with the BRICS, such as the New Development Bank. So when we come to G20 now, so there are many common nations between these both and they are working with each other. You can also focus on various different things such as the G7, G8, the ASEAN, the BIMSTEC, and how they correlate in the modern world. Alright, question can be asked by taking multiple factors into the question. In September 2023, at the 18th G20 summit, Indian PM Narendra Modi announced that the African Union has been included as a member of the G20, making it the 21st member. So the latest addition has been the African Union. So we recently also saw that in the BRICS from 2024, new countries will be added, Ethiopia, along with the South Africa. Okay. Let's see these countries now. So which are the G7 countries? They are Germany, France, UK, Canada, US, Italy, and Japan. Then there's a G8 country, Russia. And then there are further G20 countries, which are Australia, India, South Africa, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now a member of BRICS as well from 2024. Indonesia, China, South Korea, Mexico, and these countries. All right. Let's move further, which is the next news with us. Australia to start Maitri Fellowship Program. So this is very small news, so we'll cover it quickly. So Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong announced that the Australian government will start the Maitri Fellowship Program. So what will happen in this program, under which Indian researchers will get to spend 6 months to 2 years at a think tank in Australia, while researchers from the country will spend the same time in an Indian institution. Highlighted the role of the youth in influencing how the nations in the Indian Ocean region are reshaped. So this can be used as an example of the cooperation between the IOR countries, which are Indian Ocean region countries. Okay, versus let's say China. So we can have this program here, Maitri Fellowship Program with Australia to strengthen our ties. Okay, let's quickly move to the next news. So in this news, we are talking about the zero carbon emission target. So first of all, what we need to see is that where does this target come from? What is the origin of this target? Such as which summit or which, let's say, Paris goals. So what are these and under which treaty they come? All right. So the title of the United Nations latest report, that is Broken Record, is a clever pun. Not only does it suggest that previous warnings of the consequences of rising greenhouse gas emissions, that is the GHG. So what's important for us to know, what are the greenhouse gases? What are their effects and working mechanism? And how greenhouse effects or greenhouse gases affect the ozone also. Is there any relation or not? So they are being ignored, but also that new ceilings are being breached. The annual emission report, usually timed close to the beginning of the climate talks, reiterates in sharper language. Reiterates means repeats. In sharper language, that progress since the Paris Agreement of 2015 has been tardy. The stated goal was to keep temperatures from rising 2 degrees Celsius and as far as possible below 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels. That means around 1800s. That's when the industrial revolution took place. So we need to see what were the Paris goals and what are the India's NDC and promises. In the last few years, much of the consensus means the general agreement, has been that we should be directing all our efforts towards keeping it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The broken report, however, suggests that accounting for all commitments made by countries, as per the PA, to minimize their economy's reliance on fossil fuel, temperatures would still result in an overshoot of 2.5 degrees Celsius to 2.9 degrees Celsius globally by the end of this century. To keep temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius, emissions by 2030 must be cut 28%, and for 1.5 degrees Celsius, they must be shaped by 42%. So despite many countries having promised to be net zero, meaning no net carbon emission, the report does not think these promises are credible. And even in the most optimistic scenarios, the likelihood of keeping emission below 1.5 degrees Celsius are 14%. Alright, so we need to focus on India right now. That what are India's NDC end goals to 2070 net zero, and how can we achieve that? There have been many lectures I've taken on the renewable energy also. So we need to see what to do. So however, it is not as if the PA has been infructuous. GHG emissions in 2030 based on the policies in place were projected to increase by 16% at the time of the adoption of the PA, Paris Agreement. Today, the projected increase is 3%. To keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius, annual emissions must reduce every year until 2030 by 8.7%. So what the report says is that the world collectively emitted 57.4 billion tons in 2022, an increase of 1.2% over 2021. So we need to take care of all these statistics and data. At least, let's say if we are talking about the environment in GS3. So we must have the yearly data on something such as, let's say, air pollution, which are the major themes, or let's say climate change or emissions, which we can use in almost all answers. So if we remember this line, so we can use it in all answer or in introductions. So the pandemic saw 4.7% drop in emissions, but the projection for 2023 suggests that the globe is nearly back to pre-pandemic emissions level. The consequences of the globe's tardiness are writ large. As of October this year, 86 days were recorded with temperature of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. So year by year, we are going towards, let's say, the pre-industrial levels and even more global warming. So September was the hottest recorded month ever, with global average temperature 1.8 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels. In terms of solutions, the report repeats sage advices that have been offered for years. Again, the richest countries and those historically responsible for gobbling sparse atmospheric capacity for carbon must commit to greater and faster reductions. So what we are seeing here is climate financing and the responsibility towards climate change from the global north. Global north means countries which first industrialized, such as USA. They emitted a lot of carbon in the air, and now we all are, let's say, filling for the gap. So Global South was not responsible for this emission. Global North was responsible, so they must provide some finance and take responsibility of this mishap. Okay, one more news here is Maldives to rising sea levels by building fortress islands. So let's see where is this Maldives and why are they building such islands. So President of the Maldives announced plans to beat rising sea levels through ambitious land reclamation. So this has already happened. We saw this in Dubai, UAE, and building islands higher. The Maldives, already facing drinking water shortages, rejects plans for citizen relocation, asserting self-sufficiency and proposing strategies for expanding living areas. So furthermore, while seeking $500 million in foreign funding for coastal protection. So Maldives is a coastal country. We all know it as a tourist attraction. It's more like an archipelago or hotel. Alright, so let's see the mapping also. We'll see what problem it's facing. And what is the, let's say, effect on climate change on small island nations. Alright, so this can serve as a case study. So critics including environmental and rights group caution that such policies may exacerbate means make even worse flooding risks and violate environmental regulations. So what is the issue here? The Maldives is a low-lying archipelago. Archipelago means a group of islands. Has been on the front lines of the climate crisis. So we saw the South Africa also faced such an issue with the flooding. The Indonesia also recently changed its capital to Nusantara. Alright, so these all nations are having this flood issue with 80% of its land less than a meter above sea level. So rising salt levels have contaminated freshwater sources, prompting concerns about the nation's drinking water supply. The Maldives faces challenge associated with population density in capital Male, which is already surrounded by sea walls and seeks further expansion possibilities. So let's see the location of this nation here. So this is Male, the capital of the Maldives. And Maldives is located like this on the southwest of India. Alright, and this whole island nation, you can see Lakshadweep here also as various small islands. So Maldives is an extension of this whole geological process. This is Madagascar and this is the African plate. So this is a complete geological phenomena that led to the formation of Maldives as well as Sri Lanka here and the India here. This is Australia here. Alright, so all of these nations may go through the same phenomena. We recently also saw the Pacific Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean and saw the emergence of volcano island there. So you can read about that also. This is Male here, the capital of Maldives. So please remember all this mapping portion. Nobody will be asking you questions related to the name of these islands, but just remember the Male is here and it's the capital of Maldives. It's divided into various different small islands. Alright. Alright, let's go further. Just a second. So India, COP28 and climate change. So again, we have come to the third topic, this one related to the environment here. So as India gears up for 28th COP to the United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change, it becomes imperative. So basically 26th COP took place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. The 28th will be placed in India. So it becomes imperative to assess the profound impact of climate change on the country's health. So India's already fragile health systems and its population are highly susceptible to health repercussions of climate-related risk, etc. What's my point here is that you can read it by yourself. We'll address this editorial in the end of the lecture, let's say, just to keep a point on the important portions. Or otherwise, you can just address some things here. Let's say 2% rise. We saw this in the Paris goals also, PA. And we had gotten some lines from the previous, let's say, topic, which told us about the climate change, finance and all. There's a recent OECD report also on this. So you can read about that also. Just remember the name of the report of the UN. Alright. So in global temperature could render many parts of India uninhabitable. Despite global commitments under the Paris Agreement to limit temperature rising to 1.5 degrees Celsius, year 2023 witnessed record-breaking temperatures and heat waves. Alright, so all these food security, we saw the World Food Day recently. I took a lecture on this. Sorry. So World Food Day recently we took a lecture on this and we talked about the food security and the millets mission. So you can connect all these things. Alright, let's see further. So India grapples with a dual health burden from both communicable and non-communicable disease. So the change in temperature and the climate change will also begin a rise in the diseases. Please remember that, because of the proliferation in the disease vector. Proliferation means increment in the mosquitoes and ticks, coupled with alternations in the seasonality of infections, poses a significant threat. Climate change could introduce vectors and pathogens to new areas, further complicating disease and dynamics. Notably, the impact on non-communicable disease and mental health is often overlooked despite the rising prevalence of these health issues in India. Heat, coupled with physical exertion and dehydration, poses risk like kidney injuries, especially for laborers facing constant exposure. So all these things are connected. This is just showing these. Alright, chronic obstruction pulmonary diseases. So these can also be an issue in various different scenarios. Rapid urbanization. We saw a lecture related to this very early in this month, I believe, where we talked about the urbanization and the problems of India with that. So sustainable urbanization is also an issue. So with unplanned development, exacerbate the impact of climate change on health. Urban areas lacking green spaces and characterized by heat retaining structures face the brunt of the urban heat island effect. Urban heat island effect, you can read about this. All right. So all of these things you can see from this from the notes. All right, I have put them here. Let's see the next news, which is about the Ministry of Education asks the state to encourage use of online coaching platform Sathi. So what is this Sathi portal? Sathi JEE and Sathi NEET. So basically it's towards the students. So those are giving engineering and medical examinations. Those who want to study engineering or medicine. Okay, so let's see about these. So Ministry of Education said that they would write to all states to encourage aspirants to utilize the newly launched portal for exam preparation, which is Sathi, self-assessment test and help for entrance exams. The online coaching platform has been launched by the MOE and IIT Kanpur. So Sathi is an open learning platform available to students at no cost. It's free. A barrier for students who could not pay to access such training programs has been bridged now, and Sathi has launched a 45 days crash course for aspirants to test their level of preparation. Sathi hosts live and recorded lectures, expertly designed curriculum and doubt clearing sessions for students to brush up their knowledge. Okay, let's move forward to the next news, which is about joint exercise in Indian US Special Forces begins in Meghalaya. So let's see about this. So a joint exercise of the Special Forces of India and the United States commenced in Meghalaya's Umroi cantonment, titled Vajraprahar 2023. So just remember the name. Vajraprahar 2023 happened between which two forces, US and India, and where? Meghalaya. So it's the 14th such exercise aimed at sharing the best practices and experiences in areas such as joint mission planning and operational tactics. First edition of the joint exercise was conducted in 2010. Lastly, we'll just quickly have an overview of the OECD report on the climate change. So OECD report reveals that economically developed countries missed their 2020 commitment to jointly mobilize 100 billion annually for climate mitigation and adaptation in developing countries, falling short by 10.4 billion in 2021. Finance for adaptation declined by 14% compared to 2020, posing challenges for developing nations. So this is about the OECD report. We'll just see the minimal headlines and one point from each of them to cover them quickly. Rest all you can just read from the PDF, which I'll share on the Telegram channel. So significance of the report: the OECD representing major developed countries provides insights into climate change finance approach ahead of the COP28, which is going to take place in India. So this lecture will cover in the earlier article that what India is facing and what can be the repercussions. All right, just a second. So the report follows the developed nations pledge at COP26 to double adaptation finance, reinforcing the importance of climate finance discussions. Moving further. So what is climate finance composition? Report indicates that 73.1 billion US dollar mobilized in 2021. 14.6 billion were provided as loans. Notably, the resilience on loans at commercial rates raises concern about exacerbating debt stress in poorer countries. So basically, the finance is given as loans. So it's of no use because it has to be returned. Critiques and issues. The report inclusion of loans without considering the grant equivalent raises questions, as the face value of loans might not accurately reflect the actual financial assistance. The concept of additionality is challenged, as developed countries may redirect existing overseas development assistance to fund climate needs impacting other crucial sectors. There's also a definitional ambiguity. Alright, so definitions are incorrect. Let's say these are all loop arounds to not give the financial assistance that is needed by poorer countries from the developed nations. There's also developing countries' needs. So preliminary data suggests 100 billion goal may be met in 2022. The figure originated without a comprehensive assessment. By 2025, developing nations are estimated to require about 1 trillion annually, emphasizing the insufficiency of the 100 billion goal. So 10 times is required. All right. Other private sector challenges there are. You can read on them also. So in conclusion, the OECD report underscores the urgency for developed nations to fulfill climate finance commitments during the course of COP28. So that's all we are needing to see in this lecture. So thank you very much. I'll address more issues in the next lecture. This is Yatharth here signing off. Keep studying. Have a very good day. See you in the next time.